All right, cheers and salutations. Welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that ring bell notification. That way, all you lovely, beautiful people are made aware when we upload new content upon our, you guessed it, YouTube channel. And today, we're going to check out something a little bit different. Now, I know the story is somewhat old, but I think it's time, I guess, for myself and all of you to maybe get a whole refresher course. And this has to deal with the, again, tragic end of the Titan Submersible. I feel no sympathy for Rush, the CEO. He purposely put people's lives in danger by trying to be, the Elon Musk of the deep blue sea? Well, unfortunately, his pride and ego caused not only his downfall, but also the innocent passengers on that trip. So I'll try and keep the jokes to a minimum, but let this serve as a warning, If you are ever trying to do a business, especially doing some kind of adventure tourism, just remember, there's a reason why there's safety protocols there in the first place. And I know currently there's still the ongoing trial, and many whistleblowers and former employees are speaking out about what it was like working for, the Ocean Gate. So this video is from Scott Manley. He's got a lot of subscribers, a lot of views on it. So, folks, please support the original content creator. A lot of time, effort, and energy is being made into these videos. So for all the videos here at Americans Learn, let's find out what's going on and how the submersible imploded. What a horrible way to go. I'm pretty sure the ghosts of the Titanic are like, what the hell is this? Already, right off the bat, talking about jokes. What's wrong with you, Kit? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Hello, it's Scott Manley here. It's been over a year since Ocean Gate's Titan Submersible was crushed while visiting the wreck of the Titanic. And now we are finally getting a look at the investigation that has been going on into what happened. For the last couple of days, I've been watching and listening to witnesses who have been testifying before a US Coast Guard inquiry. I think we've got like another 9 days worth of testimony and a lot of witnesses, but the ones we've seen so far are, well, they've told me a lot. And I'm fascinated by the way things fail, but we have the lead engineer who was fired after questioning some of the design decisions. His background, by the way, includes work on the space shuttle solid rocket boosters. And then yesterday we had David.
Wait. He got rid of the guy who, once you look in the Stockton Rush, you realize the guy was a douchebag of the highest order.
Wreckage, who's a Scottish.
And I saw this guy's testimony. This man is made out of pure patience. And you know what? I could sit back and say he's a better man than me, because if Rush treated me the way he treated him, because there was an accident. If you see this man's testimony right here, I'm going to rewind this, but if you watch this man's testimony, he's a better man than me. I could say that with absolute pride. This man is a better man than me. I would have waited once we got back to surface, because I find out for yourselves just about the testimony, right? I would wait as soon as we got up to the boat. Once we got into dry land, take my patience, take my time, and beat Rush's ass like a Cherokee drum. Throw him through some brick walls, because the way Rush treated this man right here who's testifying is downright deplorable. This man's a good man. A brave man. Let's rewind this.
Some of the design decisions. His background, by the way, includes work on the space shuttle solid rocket boosters. And then yesterday we had David Lockridge, who's a Scottish submersible expert who ran their operations right up until the point he got fired for, embarrassing the CEO a little too many times. He went into detail on how the CEO, Stockton Rush, crashed a submarine into the wreck of the Andrea Doria. And then there's Tim Catterson, who he put the sub in the water. He watched it go down, had breakfast, came back and found out they'd lost communications. He ended up sticking around throughout the search and rescue and recovery. And I'm sure you know that I am fascinated by engineering disasters, and understanding why things failed is a lot to do with how I learn how things work.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, I have a certain, let's say, morbid fascination about how exactly this failed. Obviously, very early on, I was sure this was going to be a failure and it was going to be recovering not bodies but remains. With water pressures of 400 atmospheres or thereabouts, the failure of the submarine would have been mercifully instantaneous. At the
I I really don't want to know. I've seen videos or 3D projections or AI animation of what could have happened to the human bodies. I really do hope, among hope, that it was just really quick.
the time, I believe the phrase that I used was that humans in this situation stopped being biology and started being physics. And honestly, that was paraphrasing XKCD. But even with this knowledge that the implosion of the submersible
A freaking knockoff PlayStation controller. Stupid. Wireless too, by the way. Dummy.
would have been violent and instantaneous, that still left a lot of questions about exactly how this would happen. Was the implosion a failure in the carbon fiber around the middle, at the ends? Was it the window, which of course was not rated to those depths? What exactly happened?
Oh, I didn't know that.
And we didn't have any clues. We had some pictures of wreckage. Well, now we actually have footage from an ROV, from pelagic research. This was actually, I believe, the second ROV. The first one was from a different ship, and it was not able to handle the depths and got crushed. But this shows us the footage, which was the moment where they were absolutely sure there was no recovery possible, showing the tail cone from the OceanGate submersible, damaged but actually largely intact. And many people have been pointing out the ratchet strap, which is wrapped around it, and it seems to have worked just fine. So this was a non-pressurized section of the hull that contained support equipment. It contained batteries, it contained communications, it powered the thrusters. And in front of that was actually the pressurized section. This section didn't fail, this was just separated from the rest when the pressure vessel in front of it had a catastrophic failure. The basic design had a cylindrical carbon fiber pressure section with titanium hemispheres on each end, the service module on the back, and then around this there were the thrusters, the landing gear, and various other pieces of hardware. And the general assumption was that the carbon fiber had failed. Why? Because everybody thought that carbon fiber being used in a submersible was a bad idea, albeit despite the fact that the US Navy had in fact successfully built a carbon fiber submersible that went to deeper depths for many
Whoa, wait. There was another one that existed? Okay, hold on.
more voyages. The Advanced Underwater Search System was basically a one-off carbon fiber pressure hull vehicle. And they had been testing it because they wanted to consider moving larger submersibles to, a carbon fiber-based system because it would be easier to build that kind of stuff. I believe this also used titanium hemispheres at each end. So there was a lot of detail out there on how this thing gets built. As part of the hearing, they've also posted a number of other documents online giving us new details into, the work that was done, including a bunch of engineering studies, finite element analysis looking at the structure and specifically saying, well, the failure mode, the logical failure mode would be a collapse, a buckle in the middle of the vessel. And sure, while this shows that it could work on paper, translating the paper into a working product sometimes leads to imperfections. Anyway, one of the important things they also published was the transcript, and they did it in the form of an animation showing basically the final, descent. And what is important to take away from this is that this wasn't something where they thought there was something going wrong. If there was, that wasn't evidence in any of the communications. What we do see is the communications were really unreliable. This is via an acoustic modem. Basically, it's making clicky sounds that are traveling through the water to the ship up top. and the messages are piggybacked on top of this. There's also some telemetry being sent up, and that's how they know the depth that it's at. Now, the last message that was sent says dropped 2 weights, and then a few seconds later, contact is lost.
Ugh. God, that's horrible.
This was at a depth of 3,346 meters. They still had a few hundred meters to go towards the bottom. This wasn't an emergency situation. If they were wanting to come back up, they would have dropped more weights. No, this was just to slow their descent so that they wouldn't come to the bottom, and potentially bang into things. I mean, to be clear, we can't know for sure. Maybe the hull was making weird noises and people were asking to go back up and he just said, oh, we'll drop a couple of weights. We don't honestly know.
I wouldn't be surprised that once they started probably hearing noises, because in a previous interview, Stockton Rush said, yeah, we heard a lot of crushing noises, but we figured it's going to be okay, right? Well, after listening to that testimony about how he crashed an earlier submersible into another wreckage ship, as I mentioned earlier, I'm willing to bet everyone was starting to panic when they were hearing like the crushing, the weird noises. And there were 2 submersible experts, one of them who's been on a lot of adventures, and I think another one who's been to the Titanic before, probably tell him like, hey, get us back up.
But now, as of a few hours ago, we have the first footage from the ROV showing the failed pressure hull, and this does show probably where the failure began to happen. So what we're seeing here, that is the nose cone. That is the front hemisphere there. We saw that come up to the surface without the window in it. It doesn't look like the window's there, but there is the main pressure hull. And around it, you can see shattered pieces of carbon fiber composite. You can also see the rear hemisphere. We can tell it's the rear hemisphere because it has the anchor points for the tail cone there. So if we pause it, first of all, you can see that a lot of the carbon fiber composite has essentially been pushed back inside that tail cone. And yes, that is where the occupants would be. And you can imagine with that pressure pushing that material in very quickly, it would just be a mess. Like, the human brain works on orders of a fraction of a second. This would take milliseconds. The brain simply wouldn't perceive this happening before it stopped functioning. So now in front of the rear dome, you can all...
Look, I'll defer to the experts, but I really do hope that was quick and that all that was just like that. Okay, so I'm sorry. Oh, what a horrible way. I feel sorry for the kid because he didn't want to go. And I can understand why. Like, why do I want to go to the bottom of the ocean when I could see the Titanic on a YouTube video?
Also see the titanium ring, which was interfaced to the barrel section.
I'm sorry, that just really pisses me off what happened to that kid, man. He did it just to make his dad happy, because his dad wanted to go. Stupid.
To the carbon fiber section. Now, if you compare this to the nose, it's just sitting there like on its own. There's very little debris around it. So this is telling me that the failure that happened was at the front of the pressure module. So the water is all flowing in from one end, carrying the debris down, and the other end is more or less just kicked off by the rebound. That's why it's kind of clean. Also, we know that it wasn't the window that failed, because if the window had failed, you would have water flowing in, and then you would basically have the hull getting blasted outwards. Instead, we see carbon fiber being pushed into the rear of that hemisphere. That means it was an implosion of the carbon fiber vessel starting at the forward dome. And the difference is so stark. This leads me to believe that this is actually a failure at the interface between the carbon fiber barrel and the titanium rings which are used to mount on the end plates. Now, notably, nowhere in this footage do I see any sign of that forward ring. It was clearly kicked away from this and moved sufficiently fast that it's fallen out of sight. And to be fair, it is probably more, like aerodynamic, hydrodynamic, I guess, than those big spherical end caps. So it's likely that it moved a bit further after the initial event. And given that the event probably began around that ring, I could see it getting pushed a bit faster. I suspect we're going to get more details on this in coming days. I'm pretty sure there will be some evidence on the forward ring, which was absolutely brought to shore. Okay, so just to explain what I just said, this is what I think actually happened. I think the failure begins somewhere along this front bulkhead, right? Somewhere between these two things. And you got to imagine, yes, that there is a bulkhead here. Sorry, that you have a sphere right here, right? And you've got the window on the front. And somewhere around this circumference, water basically starts pushing in, or it breaks, or there's a crack. And the cracks, once a crack starts, it propagates backwards, right? You get water will start pushing its way in, and you got to imagine that this stuff starts getting pushed in all the way around, right? So the water is pushing this in, and as it runs down, you're going to have these cracks, and more stuff is going to get pushed backwards like this as the sides get squished inwards, right? So this is what's happening. Now, equally, you got the water is kind of rushing into this gap here, and it fills this gap and will pop this window out. That's why it's not in there. And the pressure will also just knock this entire section off on its own, right? The water's like flying backwards. It smashes into this bulkhead. Obviously, everything in here gets smashed up against this, bumps into this, and the tail will get detached off on its own as it recoils. So what you're left with is the hemisphere, the ring, and a whole bunch of carbon fiber debris and whatever is left inside this, all shattered. That's what I think this is showing. This is why I think we have a failure here. If we had a failure in the middle, then this sort of failure process would propagate in both directions, and you would have carbon fiber debris in here and in here, right? That is my conjecture. I should also point out that this is radically different from all the other OceanGate Titan failure simulations, and there's been a lot of these on YouTube using very sophisticated techniques, I will say. Great work, but they all show a failure in the middle of the vessel because that's where the peak stress is. So now I'm...
Okay, so, I mean, hey, look, we were all there. Again, seemed like a solid theory, so nobody give anybody any shite. I mean, we're all just now finding this out, and that's why there's a trial and an investigation happening, so... Okay.
I'm sure we'll see some of these people redo their work with the new knowledge that we have gained in the last couple of days. And so we do actually have footage.
Yeah, there's the douchebag. Right there. Oh, duh. Sometimes you gotta throw, sometimes safety's a waste. Oh, yeah? Well, the ocean made you waste, as well as did the ocean life itself. I got a quick question. I know that the guy said, like, we stopped, like, the humans on the ship stopped being biology and turned into physics, but what did happen? Did they all fuse into one big gelatin thing, or... What exactly happened to those people? I mean, did they just... boom, and just vaporize like that?
Of the installation of these titanium end rings, the end rings that act as the interface to the hemispheres. And the way this works, it is literally like an epoxy glue that gets laid on along the end of this. You don't want it to be too thick. It has to be a nice, thin, even layer. And then you have to do the same to your titanium rings. And you see that they have a groove which more or less matches to the dimensions of the carbon fiber pressure hull. And then, of course, you got to line this up, drop it in there, and it will stick in place, and that's your interface. And if you're sitting there looking at this and saying, well, that's obviously a newbie mistake, they shouldn't have done that. This is pretty much what the US Navy did on their design. So it's not necessarily bad, but I think the problem is a little more subtle than this being a dumb idea. So there's like a 300-page paper on that US Navy submarine design.
Captain Douchebag right here. I have no respect for this guy. Man. The way he treated a lot of his experts, too, I'm surprised they didn't wait for him outside the bar and break his legs.
And they actually test models to destruction. But they point out that when they did the test to destruction, they did it using steel end plates. And if I remember correctly, they go into some detail pointing out that you have to match basically the compressive moduli. So engineering, you have like the modulus of compression and tension. Basically, how much force you put on it, it changes the length of something. So, modulus of compression is just like how much it changes when you apply a certain pressure. And you need to have the titanium section and the carbon fiber section both agree roughly on how much they flex when pressure is applied. Otherwise, what will happen is you will get a transfer, you will get extra stress at the joins. And like over the last year, we've heard a lot of stories about how the carbon fiber composite used in this may have been, a little cut price, that they might have bought some pre-preg cheap from Boeing that was passed at.
Oh, there's your first mistake. You bought something from Boeing. Well, no, that's not one of your first mistakes. But that's one of your hey, that's one of your made from Boeing. Do not get anything from Boeing. Boeing, and hey, folks, do you feel safe flying into a Boeing? Hey, which has more credibility? The Titan Submersible or the Boeing Starliner that has those astronauts still stuck in... They're still stuck in space. They're not coming back down until February 2025. Elon Musk is sending one of his SpaceX Dragon modules to get those people down here. They're only supposed to be up there for 8 days. 8 days. 8 days!
Sell by date, that they might not have, controlled the environment during the layup as well as they could have. There could be excess humidity, that there might have been no testing that was performed. And so if this was even, off by a few percent, then that could well add up to extra stress at these interfaces that might accidentally or might ultimately explain why we got this failure here. Of course, it could just be that the glue was crap and that fell up.
Just seeing that section area where the people were at, oh God. Hold on. Note to self. It's okay to swim on the water and maybe be in waist deep water, but don't go into the deep water. Message.
Apart, but I'm trying to find interesting answers, let's say. And yeah, interesting is one way of describing some of the photos that we saw of the construction, like this dubious O-ring design. These were brought out by David. This is a piece of carbon fiber composite which was cut off the end. On the right there, that is showing light from a flashlight shining through this. Now, to be fair, this is from the end piece of the very first one that they did. When you are laying up a cylinder, right, you're basically running this stuff in a spiral pattern. It's like a ribbon you're laying as a spiral pattern, and as you get to the end, you have to change direction. And when you change direction, then the layup doesn't quite lay flat, so you get a little excess at the end where things aren't quite as good as they should be. And of course, you then fix this by just cutting off those end pieces. And they gave out those end pieces to friends, people that were involved, and of course it doesn't look great, but that was an end piece, so hey, maybe it's okay. How about this was Stockton's idea for how they would do atmosphere scrubbing. As I'm sure you know, the human body, it metabolizes its food, and you're exhaling excess carbon dioxide and water, and if you're not dumping the atmosphere overboard, you need to scrub that out. So you have things like lithium hydroxide, and you will blow air over it and it will absorb it. Well, his homemade oxygen scrubber design was a plastic container with a base that was instead a grill of metal. You would put your absorbent in that, and then there was like a little PC computer fan at the top that would blow air through it. I'm not sure how well this would work, but frankly, I'm just terrified that was what was their prototype was. I mean, people are making jokes.
Holy cow! You know what? Hey, Stockton. Hey, you know what? Here's the thing. Stockton came from a rich family. He came of well means, but you know what? Just because you come from a rich background, you get this high-end education doesn't mean you're a smart person. This guy was an egomaniac, an idiot, a dumbass, way out of his element, and put a lot of people at risk. And yes, he did do a lot of successful dives. But Captain Dumbass Stockton Rush potentially could have hurt a lot of people using a PlayStation controller. That's not even a PlayStation controller. I forget what it is. I think it's a...
about the video game controller, but actually, I don't have a problem with that at all.
I do, actually.
It was the multitude of other corners which were cut in the name of cutting costs, compounded by his continual efforts to sidestep regulations and fire anybody who thought they knew better and disagreed with the designs. So look, I'm sure we're going to find out a whole lot more in coming days. I know I'm going to be listening. I'm sure some of you might start, but I'm sure some of the people will tell me all sorts of fascinating and new interesting things, but I wish I didn't have to learn things this way. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.
Well, Scott, you did a great job breaking that down. I didn't know that amount of detail about the Titan submersible imploding. I've seen a couple of people talk about it and cover it and explain it. But this one was really well detailed. Please, everyone, support the original content creator. Condolences to the victims. Of all of them, I feel sorry for the kid the most. Stockton Rush, you were a fool, a clown, and you'll be remembered as an idiot. Because, hey, you want to be remembered? I saw that CBS interview that you did. Well, this is how you're going to be remembered. And the story's coming out about how reckless you are with people, lives, and safety. May you be remembered as the fool, coming from a rich background. Oh, always interested in Titanic. Well, then just go ahead, open a book, or watch a YouTube video about the Titanic, okay? There. Simple as that. I am beyond furious. This comment's pure gold. Hold on. Actually, there's two. The CEO fired any safety officer who disagreed with him, and so it's no surprise that when the ocean itself disagreed, it fired him. That fired engineer has the biggest "I told you so" card in his hand, but no one to show it to anymore. Let's see. Someone else is saying, finally a video that isn't clickbait and actually shows something new, like I didn't even know the wreckage has been found. Nice update. What's your job title? I'm an engineer. What do you do? My boss expected me to agree with all of his designs. Wow. Hold on, somebody wrote this. People joke about the controller, but the thing was easily the best engineered thing on the entire sub. Ugh. All right. I'm gonna stop reading the comments before they get out of hand. All right, folks. The original link to this video is in the description box below. What are your thoughts on the Titan submersible? Do you think it was a revolutionary piece of engineering, or do you think it was nothing but dog crap? Type your thoughts in the comment section below, and respect Mother Nature, okay? Because she don't respect you. And she'll shake humanity off the planet like a bad case of fleas.